They called security on her. Not because she was loud, not because she caused trouble, but because she was black and didn't look like she belonged in a luxury hotel. They took her credit card. They accused her of fraud. They tried to drag her out. What they didn't know is that she owned half the building. And by the end of the night, their careers would be over. And the whole world would be watching. Elena Johnson had just landed after a 14-hour business flight from Singapore. She'd been negotiating deals that would expand her hospitality empire into Southeast Asia. The meetings had been exhausting but successful. She'd closed a partnership worth $42 million. But right now, all she wanted was a hot shower and a comfortable bed. She walked through the automatic doors of the Sterling Crest, one of the most prestigious luxury hotels in the city. The lobby was everything you'd expect from a five-star establishment. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, casting warm light across polished marble floors. Leather sofas were arranged around glass coffee tables. The air smelled faintly of expensive vanilla candles and fresh lilies. Elena wasn't dressed for the setting. She wore faded jeans, white sneakers, and a gray hoodie. Her natural hair was pulled back into a simple bun. She carried a worn leather backpack and rolled a small black suitcase behind her. She certainly didn't look like someone who belonged in a place where rooms started at $800 a night. But Elena had learned long ago not to dress for other people's expectations. Comfort mattered more than appearance, especially after international flights. Besides, she'd booked the penthouse suite. She had every right to be there. She approached the front desk, where a woman named Emily stood behind polished mahogany. Emily was helping another guest, an older white man in a business suit, laughing at something he'd said while processing his check-in with practiced efficiency. Another staff member, Marcus, stood nearby. He glanced at Elena, then looked away quickly, busying himself with papers. Elena waited patiently. Emily finished with the businessman, handing him his keycards with a warm smile. When she turned to Elena, that warmth disappeared. "Can I help you?" The question came out flat, almost skeptical. Elena stepped forward with a tired smile. "Yes, hi. I have a reservation under Johnson, Elena Johnson." Emily's fingers moved slowly across the keyboard, her eyes narrowing at the screen. After what felt like an unnecessarily long time, she looked up. "Are you sure this is the right hotel?" The question landed like a slap. Elena kept her composure. "Yes, I'm sure. I booked it myself 3 weeks ago." Emily glanced sideways at Marcus. Something unspoken passed between them. "Let me get my supervisor." Within a minute, a tall man in his 40s emerged from the back office. His name tag identified him as Darren Cole, front desk supervisor. He approached with an expression that suggested he enjoyed authority. Emily whispered something to him. Darren nodded, then turned to Elena. "Good evening. I understand there's some confusion about a reservation?" Elena kept her voice calm. "No confusion on my end. I have a reservation for the penthouse suite. Elena Johnson." Darren leaned over the computer, clicking through several pages, taking far longer than necessary. Finally, he straightened up. "We've had some issues recently with fraudulent reservations and stolen credit cards. I'm going to need to see some additional verification." Elena had stayed in hundreds of hotels over the years. Never had anyone asked for additional verification beyond standard ID and credit card. But she knew what this was. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her driver's license and Black American Express card. Darren took them, examining the ID with unnecessary intensity, holding it up to the light. Then he swiped the credit card. And then he didn't give them back, He set both items on the counter behind him, out of Elena's reach. This is going to take a few minutes to verify. Elena felt her jaw tighten. Verify what, exactly? Just standard procedure. But it wasn't standard. While Elena stood there waiting, 3 other guests approached the desk. All white. All checked in within minutes. No questions asked. No additional verification required. Elena stood there, her ID and credit cards still behind the desk. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. She quietly pulled out her phone, opened the voice recorder, and pressed record. Whatever happened next, there would be a record. Darren finally turned back, but he didn't return her cards. Ma'am, I'm going to be honest with you. This card is raising some flags in our system. We've had incidents recently with stolen credit cards being used to book luxury suites. Elena's pulse quickened. The billing address is correct. That card is linked to my business account. What flags specifically are you seeing? Darren's expression hardened. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details. What I can tell you is that we may need to cancel this reservation for security purposes. Cancel the reservation. Security purposes. They thought she'd stolen the card. Not because there was evidence, but because a black woman in casual clothes didn't fit their image of who should stay in the penthouse suite. I'd like to speak to the general manager. Darren's smile was thin. The general manager isn't available. I'm the senior authority on duty, and I cannot process this reservation until we verify the payment method. Then verify it. Run the card. Call the credit card company. But I'm not leaving this desk until you either check me in or return my identification and credit card. Darren's jaw twitched. His hand moved toward the phone. Ma'am, if you're going to cause a disturbance, I'll have no choice but to call security. Elena didn't raise her voice. I'm not causing a disturbance. I'm a paying guest asking to check into a room I legally booked. If you're refusing service, I need to know why. Darren picked up the phone. Within 2 minutes, 2 security guards appeared. The lobby had grown quieter. Other guests were watching now. One guard stepped forward. Is there a problem here? Darren gestured toward Elena. This woman is refusing to leave the desk. We're unable to verify her payment method. Elena kept her voice even. I'm asking to check into a reservation I booked 3 weeks ago. They've taken my ID and credit card and won't return them. The guard looked between them. Ma'am, if there's an issue with payment, maybe it's best to sort this out and come back. There is no issue with payment. The issue is that I'm being profiled. The word hung in the air. Several guests shifted uncomfortably. Darren's face flushed. That's a serious accusation. We treat all guests equally here. Then why did 3 people check in behind me without any verification? Why am I the only one whose card is being questioned? Before Darren could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. Excuse me, sir. A young woman with dark hair stood nearby. Her name tag read, Rosa Martinez, Junior Front Desk Associate. She looked nervous, but spoke steadily. Sir, I pulled up the reservation on my terminal. Miss Johnson's booking is valid. It was confirmed 3 weeks ago, prepaid in full, and there are no flags in the system. The lobby held its breath. Darren turned slowly toward Rosa. Excuse me? Rosa swallowed, but didn't back down. The reservation is legitimate. There's no reason to cancel it. Darren's face reddened. Rosa, I suggest you stay in your lane and let me handle situations above your pay grade. Rosa flinched, but held her ground. The security guards shifted uncomfortably. Elena made a decision. She pulled out her phone and opened her email, showing the screen to Darren. This is my confirmation email. Reservation number, booking details, payment receipt. Darren barely glanced at it. That doesn't prove the card isn't stolen. Elena's patience snapped, not loudly, but with quiet certainty. You know what, Darren? You might want to rethink how you're handling this situation. He let out a short laugh. Oh, yeah? And why is that? Elena looked him directly in the eyes. Because I'm a co-owner of this company. The words landed like a bomb. Darren's smirk faltered. Emily's eyes widened. Marcus froze. Elena pulled out her tablet and navigated to the corporate website for Sterling Hospitality Group. She turned the screen toward Darren. There, on the executive leadership page, was her photo and title. Elena Johnson, co-founder and chief operating officer. The blood drained from Darren's face. I co-founded this company 12 years ago. I personally oversaw the acquisition of this property 6 years ago. And right now, I'm standing in my own lobby, being accused of credit card fraud and threatened with removal by security. Darren's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you going to check me into my room, or are you going to continue this? Silence. Darren's hands trembled as he reached for Elena's ID and credit card. I apologize. There was a misunderstanding. Elena took her cards back. A misunderstanding? What was misunderstood, exactly? My reservation was valid. My payment was legitimate. Rosa confirmed that. So what specifically was misunderstood? Darren had no answer. Elena let the silence stretch. Then she spoke, her voice carrying across the lobby. I'm going to check into my room now. Tomorrow morning, I'll be meeting with the general manager, the regional director, and our head of human resources. We're going to review the security footage from this lobby. We're going to listen to the audio recording I made. And we're going to have a very long conversation about what happened here tonight. She paused. I suggest you use the rest of your evening to update your resume. Darren's face crumbled. Elena turned to the security guard. You can go. You were just doing your job. Then she looked at Rosa. Rosa Martinez, thank you for speaking up. That took courage. Please see me before your shift ends tomorrow. I'd like to talk to you about a position on our corporate guest relations team. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. Thank you so much. Elena turned back to Darren. My keycards, please. With shaking hands, Darren processed the check-in and slid the keys across the desk. Elena took them, picked up her suitcase, and walked toward the elevators. Every eye in the lobby followed her. As the elevator doors closed, she finally allowed herself to exhale. She leaned against the wall, her hands shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. She'd been in situations like this before. The subtle discrimination, the coded language, the assumptions. It never stopped hurting. But this time, she had power. This time, she could do something about it. The elevator reached the top floor. Elena made her way to the penthouse suite and stepped inside. She dropped her bags and pulled out her phone. Her chief of staff answered immediately. Elena, everything okay? No, Marcus, everything is not okay. I need you to prepare a full incident report. Contact legal, HR, and the regional director. We have a situation at the Sterling Crest. She spent 20 minutes recounting everything. When she finished, Marcus said quietly, I'm so sorry. That should never have happened. No, it shouldn't have. But it did. And now we're going to make sure it never happens again. What do you want me to do? Set up a meeting for tomorrow morning with everyone I mentioned. I want the security footage pulled and saved. I want staff records for everyone involved. And I want our corporate policies on discrimination reviewed top to bottom. Consider it done. And Marcus? Find out everything about Rosa Martinez. She showed integrity tonight. I want to make sure she's taken care of. Elena hung up and stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. Part of her wanted to rage at the injustice, but mostly she felt tired. Tired of having to prove herself. Tired of fighting battles that shouldn't need fighting. But she also felt determination. This wasn't just about her. It was about every Black person who'd been profiled in a hotel lobby. It was about Rosa, who risked her job to do the right thing. It was about making sure this couldn't happen again. The next morning, Elena met with the general manager, regional director, and head of HR. She presented the timeline, the audio recording, and the security footage. The evidence was damning. The general manager looked physically ill. The regional director's expression grew darker. Within hours, decisions were made. Darren Cole was terminated immediately. Emily and Marcus received written warnings and mandatory bias training. Rosa was offered a corporate position with nearly double her salary. But Elena pushed for more than individual consequences. We have a systemic problem if staff feel empowered to treat guests this way. I want mandatory bias training for all guest-facing staff at every property. I want a direct reporting system for discrimination complaints that goes straight to corporate HR. And I want it clear in our policies that racial profiling results in immediate termination. The meeting lasted hours. By the end, they'd outlined comprehensive changes across all 48 properties. But the story didn't stay contained. A guest who'd witnessed the incident had filmed it and posted it online. The video went viral within 24 hours. 3 million views. Major news outlets picked up the story. The hashtag #JusticeForElena trended for days. Elena released a statement through the company. I experienced racial profiling at one of our properties. This was painful, but I'm using it as a catalyst for systemic change. We're implementing comprehensive anti-discrimination training, strengthening complaint procedures, and establishing corporate oversight for bias incidents. My hope is that this will result in meaningful progress, ensuring every guest feels welcomed and respected. The media attention was intense. Interview requests flooded in. Elena declined most, focusing instead on the work. Over the following months, real change happened. They hired a chief diversity and inclusion officer. They conducted external audits. They implemented intensive training programs across all properties. There was resistance. Some employees quit rather than participate, but most engaged genuinely, many expressing that the training opened their eyes. Rosa thrived in her new role, developing guest advocacy programs that other hospitality companies wanted to learn from. 6 months later, Elena returned to the Sterling Crest. The hotel looked the same, but the atmosphere felt different. Staff moved with genuine warmth, treating all guests with respect. She checked in smoothly. The front desk associate was professional, efficient, welcoming. Simple, respectful. Exactly as it should be. That evening, standing at the window of the penthouse suite, Elena received a text from the chief diversity officer. Discrimination complaints down 68% across all properties. Staff satisfaction up 23%. Guest satisfaction improving. This is working. Real change is happening. Elena smiled. Thank you. This is just the beginning. Her phone rang. It was Rosa. Elena, I just wanted to thank you again for everything, but mostly for showing me that speaking up matters. I almost didn't say anything that night. I was scared. But you taught me that silence helps the wrong people. Elena felt emotion tighten her throat. You saved yourself, Rosa. You had the courage to do the right thing. Maybe. But you gave me permission to use my voice, and now I get to help other people find theirs. After they hung up, Elena remained at the window, thinking about voices and power and the work of creating change. Racism didn't always announce itself with slurs and violence. Sometimes it whispered behind a desk, in skeptical looks and unfounded suspicions. But silence was no longer an option. The work would continue. There would be setbacks and resistance and exhaustion, but there would also be progress. Because that night in the lobby, when they'd tried to make her feel small and unwelcome, Elena had refused to shrink. She'd stood her ground, documented the truth, and used her power not for revenge, but for transformation. The real victory wasn't the terminations or the viral video. It was the culture shift. The thousands of small moments across dozens of hotels where staff now paused before making assumptions, where they questioned their biases, where they chose respect over suspicion. The real victory was Rosa, empowered and thriving. The real victory was every guest who would never know how close they came to being profiled, because someone had learned to see them as a person first. Elena smiled and turned from the window. Tomorrow she'd visit another property. The work continued, but tonight she allowed herself quiet satisfaction. They'd thought she didn't belong. They'd been wrong. And because she'd refused to accept their judgment, because she'd demanded better and fought for change, the world was a little bit different now. Not perfect, not finished, but different. And that was enough to keep going.